This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And thank you guys for tuning in yet again for another week of the Onside Kick here on Most Valuable Podcast. And if you're on Blog Talk Radio, thank you for checking us out like you always do. And if you're on YouTube, hey YouTubes, you can see us this week as we are the video podcast. And we thought we'd do something special for you guys this week because today we're recording this on Election Day, Mark, while the results are coming in or being counted. At this time, the West Coast has yet to be calculated.
Soon they will be. The polls are closed.
But we decided, you know what? Since it's the day where the nation decides who will lead the free world, let's talk about some guys who NFL teams could be picking in next year's NFL draft.
Maybe to lead the franchise forward in the future.
Especially with the quarterback position. So it's going to be an entire NFL draft show today. And I can't be any happier because this is my favorite time of the year when we get to talk about the NFL draft. And also a special treat for you guys. I will be this week dropping my mid-season NFL mock draft for the 2017. It's the first one, but what we're going to hit in this one, we're going to look at the Cleveland Browns. We're going to look at the Chicago Bears, kind of some quarterback situations that we could see. We'll look at running backs, and then we'll finish the podcast off looking at the defensive players and who could be the highest drafted defensive player in the draft next year. But, Mark, I want to look at the Cleveland Browns first off to start the podcast. And we are using for our kind of mortar, our foundation for this, Rob Ragg's mock draft from CBS Sports. I'll put it in the description so you guys can use it as a reference. But really with Cleveland, the one thing I want to talk about is nothing's set in stone, but there's a pretty good chance the Cleveland Browns are going to be the number one pick when it's all said and done, unless they have like a fucking amazing end
gotta win at
to
least
the
a game.
season. Is there a chance that we see Cleveland not only get the number one pick, but decide to say, you know what? We're not going to make the same mistake we did before. We're not going to draft a quarterback number one overall.
Well, I certainly think it's possible. You know, I definitely think that they've shown with Hugh Jackson, of course, the Wolverine, they've shown that they're thinking differently. They're not thinking the way Cleveland typically thinks. And they have Cody Kessler, and he hasn't really impressed anybody, but maybe you want to say, we can just see and pull in a veteran and let them compete because we're 0-9 right now. We know we're not going anywhere. We're not going to be in the Super Bowl next year. This isn't John Fox. So why don't we just take more time to rebuild? And if you want to take that strategy of kind of rebuilding everything and just basically taking the slow approach, building the around and then getting that quarterback in the center to really kind of take it from there, that would certainly work. I mean, you're number one overall, so you're not going to probably do anything too crazy, but there's a really talented running back out there, there's really talented defensive players out there, and I don't necessarily disagree with the position for the Cleveland Browns here. I don't disagree with going with a defensive end because pass rushing is incredibly important. It's when you can get a guy like a J.J. Watt or something like that, or really just get, if we're not going with defensive end, if you get a Von Miller, a guy who can make a quarterback's life hell, you might not need that quarterback right away. You can still win games because your defense is making an impact. Like I said, I don't necessarily know about the player yet. If I want to agree with Jonathan Allen being number one overall, I think it's a little much, but I can see why they might think about passing on a quarterback. But of course, when you're number one overall, you got your choice of anybody, right?
Well, and that's why for me, if I am Cleveland right now, and of course, I mean, the big disclaimer that I didn't say that I guess I have to is this is kind of our first look at the NFL draft. A ton of shit's going to change,
of course,
between now and when we get to the draft next year in the year of 2017. And if I'm Cleveland right now, I kind of lean towards unless you, and it's going to be difficult because right now, like I said, we're so early in the process, but part of me maybe says, hey, you know what? If you're not sold on a guy, if like a guy like Jonathan Allen or a guy like Myles Garrett, who I like better than Allen at that pass rush position, if you're not sold on one of them, if you're not sold on a quarterback, why not trade back?
Yeah.
Why not do what you did last year? We saw last year the Titans and the Browns both do it. If we see a surge with quarterbacks, if like a Trubisky or a Watson kind of shoot up, or a Deshaun Kaiser just shoot up the draft boards, and we're talking about them as top quarterbacks, instead of drafting that quarterback, why not trade back? Because the Browns are in an interesting situation. You have a head coach. I don't think Hugh Jackson should be chudded. I know on PTI today, I was watching, they were kind of talking about who is more likely to get a second season with their team, Hugh Jackson or Chip Kelly. I think Hugh Jackson deserves a second season. He does not deserve to get chudded. What did you expect the man to do? I know that we kind of had the Browns, maybe a little bit more hype than they are. We thought
I just
they'd win a
expected
couple
that
games.
RG3 would be healthy enough to do something for a little bit. I was surprised that he got injured so quickly. You know, I think that trading back would certainly be a good idea because you got a lot of issues on this team. This defense is not good. The running game's not very good. The passing game's not good. So pretty much everything is not good right now. And, you know, obviously you have your little gems here and there. But for me, I look at a team that's giving up 30 points a game, and I say you need to either hit quarterbacks or you need guys to take the ball away, because your defense is not going to stop anybody from scoring points.
And that's where I was going to get. If you are going to make a pick, let's say you get the number one pick, because it's not set in stone. So if they get the number one pick, the two guys I would lean at, I would not go quarterback, because I feel like the quarterbacks they have on the roster, I think Cody Kessler can do a fine job. You still do have RG3, even though he's injured. I think that even Kevin Hogan showed flashes of someone who can at least be a placeholder while you next year then go for maybe that guy who's the franchise. But for me, it's either take your pick, Myles Garrett, the guy who you can put on the line with Carl Nassib and Danny Shelton, and maybe have Myles Garrett be on that right defensive end side, coming in and rushing the passer, or you go with a guy, and I know that right now on the CBS mock draft, he's 5th overall, but he's a guy that I can see climbing is Jabril Peppers. He's a kind of safety, cornerback, linebacker, kind of a hybrid. He kind of plays he plays that star position, which it's a safety linebacker hybrid for the Michigan Wolverines. He's just a guy that can do it all. He can play linebacker, he can play safety, cornerback, he can return the ball for you and be an explosive return guy. He can even play wide receiver for you if you need him to on offense. That is a guy to me where, just because of his versatility, I think that he'd be a guy where I'd be like, let's take a look at Jabril.
Well, he's a pure athlete. I mean, that's what you got to love. You can do anything with this man. And you can kind of mold him a little bit, too, to get what you want. And this defense is, you know, they need enough help to where you can put him in different places and see what works out, see where the team is best off. And that'll be something that helps out. That'll be a plus in any situation where you put him. Sure, Peppers, I think, would be a great idea because, like I said, 30 points a game, this team is one of the worst, you know, at stopping the other team from scoring the ball. So you got to do something to help out. And like I said, you're either hitting quarterbacks or you're getting someone to take the ball away. Peppers can really do either one. He can get to a quarterback, or he can be back there taking the ball away, hopefully, or at least stopping them and hopefully getting some 3-and-outs or short drives. So, sure, that would be a great idea. You know, I definitely think that Cleveland might be scared to take a running back, but you can't ignore the possibility of a Fournette to really drive this, control the ball, drive the team forward, be very steady, because we're seeing, 2 years ago we saw it with Todd Gurley. This year we saw it out of Melvin Gordon, finally came and played the way he should. You see these guys who can really help that team go forward. You hope you find an Adrian Peterson from not too long ago.
Fournette could be an Adrian Peterson type talent. He could be. The one big red flag is that he's gotten a lot of carries in college. So coming into the pros, you've already got that wear and tear by being used so much.
Yeah.
Having 30-plus carries in some games in college, that's the only thing that's concerning. But he's got the talent to be an AP-type level running back.
Yeah, and fortunately, I guess I should say unfortunately, the Cleveland Browns aren't in the best shape to really protect a runner or to protect a quarterback. Yeah. But this is one of those positions where you get that good running back, you
Takes
don't need the best quarterback. Yeah, Kessler can do a better job, or a McCown-type talent can do a much better job when you have that running back supporting you.
Lean on the running back, then maybe go to some play action.
Control the ball so that way that 30 points a game gets a little lower. Not because your defense is automatically better.
Off the field, though.
They're healthier. Yeah, they're more rested. They're performing better out there.
That's, to me, the three, to me, I would go defense. Right now, I'm leaning defense. And like I said, Garrett and Peppers would be my guys. But I was going to bring up Fournette before you brought him up, because that would be, to me, way early on when we did the way too early mock draft.
Yeah.
My first thought was I didn't think the Eagles were going to be any good. So I thought that the Browns were going to get an additional pick in the top 5. So I'm like, man, go defense, go Leonard Fournette. You're going boom, boom, 2 punches. And as of right now, if everything holds, that second Brown pick would be around the 17 area, so the late teens, with how Philly's going right now. And the CBS mock draft has them going with Cunningham, the inside linebacker from Vanderbilt. I don't know if I'm too sold on that one. I mean, I know any defensive help is good help, but
I would rather take a guy like Barnett in that situation, get some flexibility, and then I know we were just talking about Peppers with flexibility, but get some versatility in a guy who can play defensive end, who can play outside linebacker. He's going to rush the quarterback. That's what you want. You want an edge rusher. If you're not getting one in the beginning of the draft, this is your second opportunity, and I don't want to say it's your last opportunity because I don't want to go too extreme here, but it's going to be one of you're definitely going to see the drop off once you get into out of the first round between those edge rushers. So this is a guy who's still going to have the explosiveness. He's still going to be that big, huge athlete who not only can he get his hand up to deflect the ball, but he's going to get around and actually hit the quarterback, which is what you need. So I think if you go with I don't think it's a bad idea if you want to hit 1-2 on defense. Go ahead and get somebody on the defensive backside, then go forward and get your defensive end outside linebacker. Be a really good way to, I think, shore up 2 positions, get that young versatility out there.
I'm almost on the other side of it. I'm almost on get your pass rusher first, because I know that we haven't dove in. What you guys know what I mean? We haven't gotten into the film enough to really make because when the season's over and we have all the tape in the world, we're gonna dive into it and we're gonna nitpick these guys and we're gonna find weaknesses. I mean, remember Leonard Fournette? We thought this guy was gonna be better than he is, and it's like, wow, he actually has some flaws that he's got to work on. I think as of right now, Myles Garrett is going to be one of the best pass rushers, not just in this draft, but he's a guy that I think is going to step onto an NFL team and be a franchise changer. That's what I think he can do. So if I'm the Browns right now, I'm thinking, you know what? Let's go with Garrett early and then kind of staying the same way you were saying. You know what? I know Christian McCaffrey's there, but we don't need to go running back. Let's go cornerback, and a nice one that it'll be interesting to see where he goes come draft time. Desmond King, the cornerback out of Iowa, because this is a guy who I know this year Iowa's been not struggling, but they haven't been as good as they were a year ago. But this is a guy who, yes, he has the physicality, he has the ball skills, and he can intercept the ball. And that's something like you were talking about. He's a guy that can get you takeaways, get the defense off the field, and get your offense right back on the field.
Yeah. Or a guy like Tabor, of course, out of Florida, who is exactly the same situation. He's going to intercept the ball. Takeaways are huge. Anything you can do to get your defense off the field, get your offense back on there. That's what's important in this situation. And like we both agreed before, Cleveland's not in a situation where you plug the quarterback in and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So building up that defense is great. Or if you want to get some running back in there, something like that too. I just think that, as always, and this is the problem Cleveland falls into too often, when you're up towards the top, it's too hard to not take that quarterback.
The temptation's real, man.
You've got that guy who's there, but you gotta think about some of those teams that might want to trade up. If it's an Arizona Cardinals, if it's the New York Jets wanting to trade up, if it's the Chicago Bears for some reason wanting to get ahead of the 49ers. There's a lot of teams there that do need quarterbacks. Depending on how the rest of the season goes, depending on how the combine and the interviews go, there might be a team that is willing to trade up where you can stay in the top 10, and then you're still going to be able to get your good edge rusher. You're still going to be able to get possibly a good running back or a good corner or safety. You're going to get something. Ideally, trading back, I think, is always the right situation. There's not that number one guy. There's no way in hell you can pass him up in this draft. So go ahead and go back if you can. But Cleveland, they're you got 2 picks in the first round. You're in a no-lose situation. I shouldn't say that because Cleveland, of course, there's a good chance they could lose, but you're in a really good spot. Just make the smart decisions, improve the team. Don't go for the home run right now. Get your guys on base, and we'll get them home later. We'll build the whole team and take the slower approach as opposed to what Cleveland has always tried to do, which is just give us that quarterback, and he's going to lead us to the Super Bowl. I know it.
And then he doesn't.
Exactly. And then get us the next quarterback.
But I want to move on into some of the quarterbacks. And before we do, Brown fans, onside kick fans, let us know down below what you guys think. Is this the year the Browns maybe fight the odds and not go with a quarterback? What do you think the Browns should do if they do get that number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft?